Let's wait for 2-3 minutes more to start. A very warm good morning to one and all present here. On behalf of the Career and Development Cell, we welcome you all for the Senior Junior Interaction Talk for 2023 batch. Let's begin with this beautiful quote by Mark Twain. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than ones you did do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, and discover. With this quote, I would like to start today's session. We would like to thank retired Brigadier S.K. Kakkar sir, the Director of Career and Development Cell, MAIT, and Amit Gautam sir, Training and Placement Officer, MAIT, for giving us this opportunity to organize today's Senior Junior Interaction Talk for the upcoming drive, Josh Technologies. Josh Technology Group is a young, ambitious, and dynamic niche product company based in Gurugram, working in various fast growing US, Europe, and Indian based startups on new products across the multi domains. As part of our journey with Josh Technologies, today we are able to hear from the seniors of our college who have worked hard and been placed in the company. I would like to welcome Mr. Lavkesh Dhanda of batch 2022 from branch Tripoli, now working at Josh Technologies as software and front-end developer. And also Kshitij Katyar of batch 2022 from CSE branch, now working with Josh Technologies as software developer. It is a pleasure to have you here, sir, with us today. Thank you so much. Our listeners are requested to keep their webcams and their microphones off until the Q&A session, and please make their queries to the chat box. Now, I would like to welcome and ask Mr. Kshitij Katyar to take over the seminar forward with his experiences.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Am I audible clearly to all?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So hey everyone. I'm Kshitij Katyar, and I've been working in JTG I think for the past 11 months now. First as an intern for 9 months I think, and then as an full-time employee. And just like you all, I've completed my BTech from Maharaja Agreshan Institute Technology only, from CSC branch, and 2022 pass out. And same time last year, like every other fourth year student, I was also applying for placements in different companies, sitting in interviews, giving written assessments, making projects, trying to like hone my skills for everything. And for me, I think JTG was like the second company I've applied in, and I was like already rejected from the first one, and actually in the last round. And to be honest, like that was my dream company. So I didn't have like prior experience of like getting rejected. So like I was like really heartbroken and sad. So one advice like which really helped me is, I mean, getting rejected is a part of life. Like no matter like how much you want for that company, no matter like how much you have prepared for, you will be getting rejected, and that's okay. Like you just require to like write somewhere that these are the mistakes you think you have done, trying to work on them and just move on. You should basically like just prepare for the next one. And for like my placement experience, JTG probably have like one of the longest process for the selection. Like from what I remember, I think it had 3 written rounds, then 3 tech interviews and 1 HR round. So total, I think 7. And I think for like the front end part, because like JTG actually come for 2 different positions, front end developer and a software developer. So for the front end, I think it basic maybe had like 8 rounds. Yeah, basically 8 rounds. So yeah, it's like really a very long process. So for the written rounds, I think first one is going to be like a simple objective round where you are going to get like questions from OOPS, DBMS, output-based questions of C, C++, Java, and like some from operating system, and basically like things like that. One thing which really like caught my mind was some of the questions in that objective round actually had like negative marking, and I haven't like seen that in any other company I've like applied with. And for like the second round, yeah, it was a like a subjective round. You basically like get 90 minutes to solve 3 coding questions, and all of them are usually like medium to hard uh, level. And there is like every other interview, like you are going to have like test cases. So you are like, even if you are like not able to solve the whole question, even if you like have solved like half of it, you will still going to get like half numbers, which is actually pretty good. And the third round is actually similar to what the second round was. You again get 90 minutes and you again have 3 coding questions which you are going to solve. But one thing which I actually like after working in JTG is they have like a really rigorous process of plagiarism. So please don't try to like cheat or anything. Whatever you have, just try to do whatever you know. Just try to like play around with the question, and most probably you will get it. And then for the tech interviews, yeah, so there are basically 3 tech interviews, but if you have like done really well in like the last subjective round you have, like the written one, then you maybe like can skip 1 interview. But I didn't do that that well, so I have to like give 3 interviews. So the first 2 interviews are actually pretty similar to every other company. You again get like 90 minutes. The interviews usually go for like 1.5 hour, and you basically get like 2 questions. It basically like every other interview starts with your intro, then some questions on OOPS or DBMS, then what the project you have done, some questions on that project. And after that, you basically got 2 questions from DSA, and you have to solve them. Most of the time, like interviewers are really helpful, like even if you are get stuck, or even if you like not able to get that particular question in that moment, so they will definitely try to help you in that. They will definitely give you some hints, because like for one thing which like even like in the JTG we have taught is, we are taking your interview not to reject you but to select you. Okay, so don't think of it like we are trying to like just point out the things you are bad at. We are actually trying to point out the things you are actually good at. Yeah, so for the tech interview, yeah, usually like from uh, like whenever it's like you guys also will sit for the interview, so one thing always do, try to like read all the experiences, like past experiences in different sites, basically for the company, like what kind of questions they ask, like how many time, like what kind of time they will give you, what kind of like, whether you write to have to write like the whole code, or you just write to like explain the logic. So these kinds of things always like read about a company before setting for the interviews. So similarly, like in the JTG, they actually like going to like write the whole code for you, and that's it basically. Like if most of the time like you get selected or you get rejected. For JTG, they actually have like will give you a portal. On that portal, like all the rounds are given, whether you have like accepted or like whether you get rejected or whether you get accepted. You will even get the mail also, so that's basically like a good thing. Sometimes in the company when we give the interview like for a month, even we don't get like anything back from them. So that's definitely a good part. The second tech interview is similar to the first one. Basically you are again going to get like 90 minutes, 3 questions, you have to solve them. The last one actually, the last interview, which the tech interview basically, it's going it's actually like one of the hardest interviews I've sat in. It usually goes for somewhere around 2.5 hours or maybe even more than that, because it basically depends on the interview, but 2 hours is like the minimum time they're going to give you. So like they expect you to solve the questions because of the like the time constraint it has. So like I still remember like when that interview started, the first thing interviewer have asked me was, have you eaten, and please like have a water bottle besides you because it's going to be a long interview. And it actually was like my actually went for like maybe 2.5 hours. So it was like really rigorous. And like especially like in the end, when like the whole interview finished, we usually like ask questions to the interview like, how's the company, how's everything going for you, what are the things like we can learn if we join like that company. And really like I was so you can say tired of like speaking for the last 2.5 hours. I didn't have even the energy to like ask those questions. But yeah, luckily I was selected. And the last one was, I think, the HR interview. The HR interview are like, for me personally, like it was really fun. Like we usually like joke around of how like you are going to work in that company, like what are the things you are going to learn. And JTG actually like is a startup, so it's have like a startup culture. And even if our motto is work hard, party harder, so in like you can, and yeah, like for the last 10 minutes of the HR interview, we were just talking about where like where are the like where we can go for our like after the interview. We usually go for like different places to visit for all the interns which are joined. And we personally went to Goa, so it was also like pretty good. And yeah, that's it for like the whole interview process. And it was really good. Like for the like 11 months which I've worked here, it was really fun. Like it definitely have the startup culture, so you can ping actually anyone in the company if you don't know anything, and they actually like tell you, they actually clear your doubts. Even once I actually like just messaged our CTO that I'm not able to get that thing, and he actually like had a meeting with me and like taught me everything depending on that topic. So it was really fun. And like if you like any of you guys are selected in JTG, I would definitely recommend it. Like one thing joining a startup is guaranteed is the knowledge you gain. Like in just 10-11 months, I've worked basically like in technologies like Golang, React, Angular, DevOps, C, C++, Java, and like many other languages. So they definitely don't have that constraint that if you are in that team, you have to work in those technologies and you cannot like work in any other else. So that's actually like a really good thing. And to be honest, like just working in JTG for like the first 3 months, I was able to learn more about development, which I haven't learned in like the 4 years of my college. And it's actually true. So yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you, Placement Cell, for giving me the opportunity to speak. And thank you everyone for listening to me. Yeah, thanks.
we would like you all to address your questions in the chat box. So after the form was shared with the students, there were some questions. I'll start with that.
Sure.
So the first question is that what was the difficulty of the technical rounds?
Okay, sure. So, like I said, there are going to be three technical interviews if you are like going for software developer position. So for the first two, I think it's going to be like a medium because you have like 30 minutes to solve one question. So it's going to be like 10 minutes for like getting the logic and then 10-15 minutes to write like the whole code. But the last one, which is like tech interview 3, it's actually like going to be, you are going to get like almost 1 hour for a single question. So that is going to be definitely a harder level question rather than like a medium one.
Next question. Is the work remote from office or it's like offline also, and how is the work culture?
Okay, so right now we have like the option to select whether we want to work from home or whether we want to like go to office. So like personally for me, I'm working from home, but some of my team members are like going for in the office. And like for the work culture, I mean it's a startup, so it definitely have that startup vibes. It's definitely good for me at least. Like first you learn a lot of new things. Second, you even if you don't know, you can ask literally anybody. It's not like you have a constraint that you can only like talk with your seniors or like your tech lead. You can even like ping anyone in the company and they will like definitely will clear your doubts if they can. So yeah, for me the work culture is pretty good.
Next question. Does the objective test also includes aptitude questions?
Yeah, it does. Like you basically get like I think 4 sections in that, and one of the sections is aptitude. Yeah.
Next question. On which topic of DSA does the questions are asked?
Personally, for me, they were mainly revolved around trees and linked list. So, like tree in every interview, I had like for the first two interview, I had like one question linked list, one log question tree, then one question linked list, one question tree, and in the last one, I basically had like 2 questions on trees. So for me, it's basically revolved around trees and linked list.
And for the coding interviews, what was the difficulty of the questions?
Yeah, so for coding interviews, tech interviews, or like the written rounds.
Tech interviews.
Okay, so like I said, like for the last round, you are definitely going to get questions on harder level because you are going to get like 1 hour to solve a single question. Whereas for the first two, it's going to be medium because you're going to get like 30 minutes, around 30 minutes to solve one question.
Does the projects and internship matter for the software development role?
Uh, I think not that much. Like if you are really good at DSA, then I don't think so it matters that much. But it's like for other companies, it definitely. So it's better to have like a one project where which you have like created and it's actually really good or it's actually like unique for you. So you can talk about it.
Next question. How did you prepare for the DSA?
Okay. So like here, most of the students are in the 4th year, I think. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so like if you are right now in the 4th year, there are like many things you have to cover. Like first, yeah, a project which you can talk about. Second, your subjects, OSD, BMS, OOPS, these kind of subject. And the third one is obviously DSLO. So right now it's better to like just go on lead code and try to do like medium questions on that, especially on the topics you are weak at, so that first thing you can understand that particular concept and topic, and second you can also have like there is one extension I think you can search about it. it basically like gives you the time, like how much time you have actually able to solve that question. So that's also helps a lot.
Can you describe the pattern of the interview and the test, coding test?
Okay, so for the interviews, like I said, usually there is like intro from both sides. Then we talk about your projects a little bit, like for maybe the 5 minutes, and then one or two questions on the technology you have worked, maybe, and then basically the two DSO questions. First question is going to be like easy to medium level. So you are going to get like 20-30 minutes for that. And the next one is also going to be like similar to that, 20-30 minutes. So usually the interview goes around for like more than 1 hour. Yeah.
So this is kind of a personal question that you were also selected in iron trading.
Yeah.
So why did you choose JTG over iron trading, considering the bottom conditions also?
Yeah. So one thing which really like before giving the interview for ion trading, like before even selecting, I was already working in JTG. And like the first 3 months which I've worked, one thing I definitely like got was the knowledge. Like initially, like for the first 2 months, I think I was overwhelmed with knowledge. Like I wasn't able to understand many things. But after like you can say like after 3 months, I actually like see that if I work in that company for like maybe 2 years, then it's definitely going to help me in the future. Whereas ion trading is already a very established company, whereas JTG is actually like more of a startup. So you actually get like more responsibility in a startup than in like already established company.
Last question. Can you tell us about the pattern of objective test?
Okay, so like in the objective test, you are going to get like maybe 4 or 5 sections, where like one section is going to be your aptitude, one is going to be output based questions. It can be from C, C++, Java, and then one you are going to have like one from all the subjects you have, and one section for like the oops only. So yeah, you are going to have like 4 sections of different objective questions.
I appreciate your kind words, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time.
Yeah. Thank you all as well, like for listening and giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Moving on. A little progress each day adds up to the big result. With this, I would like to call our another speaker, Mr. Lavkesh Thanda, to share his experiences and share his thoughts.
Mm, Hi all. First of all, like thanks Shreya for the kind introduction. And hi everyone, my name is Lokesh, and I cleared both the front end and software development rounds for the JOS Technology Group. So like in total, there are around 15 rounds of test and coding interviews that I cleared. For the like software, I think Kshitij has already shared a lot. So like I will just say some things that I think. I agree with him very much. Like first, before going to any interview or for any company, like read about the previous experience. Like most of the time, a company like they have some selected set of questions, so like they know where to revolve around. For example, like for me too, the most of the questions were around trees, recursion, linked list. So like always read the questions. You might like if you have good chance, you might get repeated questions too. So I think that's a very plus point. The second thing, like I would like to say, like they are extremely helpful. Like all the interviews like even in interviews for like some front end interviews I didn't remember the whole syntax, so they like let me completely search the documentation on Google right there in the interview. And for the DSA questions too, like they were very helpful. They will tell me okay, like this is maybe like where you are wrong, so this is where you can approach your like you can solve your problem or some stuff like that. So like read the interviews and they are very helpful, so that is very good for them. I will mainly focus on like I think the front end interview right here. So for me there are around like 6 or 7 rounds. And for the first 3 rounds, like they all happened on the same day. Like first test was at around 9, 10, then there was 12, and then 3 or 4. And like with each round they like just removed some of the students. The selected ones were allowed to go to the further rounds. First round is same for both software and the front end interview. They will ask some basic MC questions about C++, Java, some very basic system design, and some like pseudocodes for DSA questions, like inverter, pre-order, post-order of tree, or stuff like that. Like first round is not very hard, but there is negative marking, so always keep that in mind. It is bad. And for the second question, like yeah, I think someone also asked in the front end, like do they need DSA in front end? You will need some DSA in the front end also. Like for the second and third round of the coding test, there was some DSAs involved. But again, for the front end, the questions will be pretty simple. Like for me, I think the questions were around linked list to segregate odd even or check palindrome, like very basic stuff, not something that you will need some hard practice to complete. For the third round, like it was not completely coding. It was kind of for front end HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But the thing is, like they didn't give us complete editors. It was kind of like a notepad, and they just asked us to some basic JavaScript questions like for closures and like some JavaScript. You can say they are a bit advanced topic, but closure, like you should know, a very important topic for front end. And then there was like okay, code a simple cloak for the front end, but as like I said, there was no output, so you can't see. And like they cleared, everyone cleared the round 3, so they didn't ask a lot of questions, stuff like that. Apart from that, like from this is where the stuff SD and the front end interviews will be different right here. So next, like they give us assignment, and the assignment was like there was a Figma link, and we need to replicate it using HTML, CSS. There was some JavaScript, but the JavaScript part was optional. They said like you can do it if you can, but it will not be uh, checked for your marks or stuff like that. So for Figma, like I will say you need some experience with Figma, not a lot. Like you need to know how to export images from Figma, and yeah, basic and plus like just make a project, some simple project using Figma, and you will have all the experience that you will need for the Figma part. And then after that, like there was a face-to-face interview, and in that we need to create some simple applications. And that application, there was like a lot of very simple HTML and CSS, but there was a lot of JavaScript. For example, you need to do DOM manipulations, and there was closures concept, and yeah, CSS max with like minimum max with media queries, and like it was more focused on JavaScript, but you will need some CSS stuff too, some basic CSS you can say. And then for me, like there was 2 coding interviews, and in coding interviews for first they need to ask me like I think it was a website called Flex Books Froggy or something like that, and on there they asked me about stuff on Flex and Build, and I need to do some live coding right there. And after that, they gave me a CodePen link, and on CodePen, I was asked questions related to the CSS transform properties, or like make an X or move it at 45 degrees and things like that. And apart from that, like I was also asked questions about some array methods like bind, map, filter, sort. So you will need those too. And for this, I think there is a YouTube channel. I think something around Jan or stuff like. Maybe like I will share the link later. Akshay Jain, Akshay Jain. You can ask his interview. You can watch his videos about the front end interview, and I think you will be set for the interviews. Then in the last round, like it was more of a experience kind of thing. He asked me questions like some kind of generic questions. We started with okay, like you are getting a lot of requests on the server, and you need to figure out like why they are coming. So for that, like let's say you give some answer, and then he will ask question based on that answer. And it was like a talking kind of thing. And if you're stuck here, then again I will say like they are really helpful, and you can always Google stuff from the internet. So that was pretty helpful. And for that, like you need just make a 2 or 3 projects in the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript part, and I think you will be set. And as for like maybe React or Angular, you don't need experience. Like if this ask like, do you know any of the big libraries? So you can just say I have worked on it, but don't have a lot of experience, because like until you are very good at React, which I believe not a lot of people are at this college level, because it's a big language and you need a lot of things. So just say like I am good at HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and they will ask questions from that. Like even if for you also, from one of my friends, they asked some questions about SEO, like what are meta tags and why do you need them, like just the normal stuff and generic stuff. Make 4 or 5, 2 or 3 like good projects on that, and I think you will be set. So that's the, I think, procedure. But like do read the interview guide from different websites. There are like Code Studio for coding jars, and there are a lot of guides on Lead Code, I think, and you might find some on Geeks for Geeks too. So just read what they are like telling and what they are asking. So it will be good. Like tips and tricks, they are like practice every day. You are already in fourth year, so you should already be like good at both DSA, and you should have like 2 or 3 projects. And if you don't, like start right now, I will say, and just it's coding, man. Like keep practicing. The more you practice, the better you will be. There is no other tip and tricks from my side. Yeah, that's all.
We can start with questions, I guess. So the first question is there DSA asked for the front end interviews and like the process?
Um, yeah, like I think in my second coding test, there was 2 DSA questions, but there were like some basic and medium level, so nothing hard or stuff like that. For each question, you get around half hour, so you can just think it like if you get an a half hour for any complete interview, it will be basic to medium questions, not a hard one. And for like in the interviews, you will need some basic DSA, like maybe sort an array using filter or map or stuff like that, but nothing that is very hard. For example, tree graph or hash map or stuff like that. So,
Next question. So for the technical interviews for the front end profile, are there DSA questions or the questions related to React JS or JavaScript and all?
so like in the coding test, you will have some DSA questions. The first round will be complete the MCQ round. It will be completely on DSA and some basic C++ or Java system questions. And the second part is complete DSA. You used to get 2 questions, and from there on, like you will start getting some front end part. Then you will not have any hardcore DSA part. But the interviewer can always ask some questions, so there is no limits to the interviewer. So just prepare the basic, medium, and easy level DSA questions if you're going for the front end.
The in-depth knowledge about JS is required or like the medium will work?
No, I think for JavaScript you will need some very good in-depth knowledge. For example, the functions like bind, call to, apply. I think these are very advanced level questions, so you will need those. And yeah, for JavaScript you need very good knowledge.
Next question. All the rounds for the JTG tests are elimination rounds or there's some criteria?
I think all of them were elimination rounds. But for like for front end, there were, let's say, third round. In the third round, you need to create the mock in the editor. The editor was like a notepad. I don't know if they improved it right now. But for that round, all of my friends, like I think the whole college cleared that round. But most of the rounds are elimination rounds, yes. And in the SD, the elimination will be very hard. Like they will just keep eliminating a lot of people. So yeah, every round is, you can think every round as an elimination round.
Please give insights about the SDE coding test also.
Mm, for the SD coding test, for me it was, I think, some, like I said, the questions most of them revolve around trees, recursion, and one or two of my friends, they asked them the questions about graph, but very less. I think the number is very less. So the insights are like you need. They will ask you 2 questions in most of interview. In the last interview round, the questions will be hard, so they will give you more time. And in the first round, I only had two coding tests because, like Siti said, if you perform good in the third coding test, you only have two interviews. So I only had two interviews. So in the first interview, the questions were around easy, but the thing is like you only have 30 minutes for a question, so that is thing that you need to focus on very much. See, first 5 minutes the interview will take it to tell you the questions. You need to understand the questions very well. Then the next 5 minutes you have to think of like, maybe like, let's say you have 15 minutes to think of the questions, and then you will explain him your logic, like, okay, this is what I'm planning to do. The thing is like in that 15 minutes you need to come up with a very good solutions for all the repetitions that you can do, because then you will only have 5 or 10 minutes to code the questions and tell him. And if at any point like you are taking more time, then the thing is, the other windows will get shrunk, and then like you will just lose confidence and the things will start to go south. So I think like the timing is very important. If you are doing easy or medium level questions, then you need to time yourself. Like don't take more than half hour. That is, then it will be way too much. Just keep practicing for that.
This is a little personal question. So, you you cleared all both the profiles, software development and the front end developer. So, how many actually rounds you gave? Like all the 15, or you had some weightage that you cleared one profile, so you didn't give the coding test for the other profile. What did like you gave all
No,
the tests?
yeah, I did give all the rounds actually. They most of the rounds are like for the SD, and they will take one day, and they will take you. You need to give three coding tests in one day, and then the next day I think there was for the, but first day I think it was for front end, and then the next day it was for SD. And like in the end you get to know like, oh, I have cleared these many rounds, like I have cleared both this and this. So I think for me the HR was only round that was common, but other than that all rounds were different. So I need to clear all the rounds.
Okay. Next question. I want to know more about the online coding rounds, and what were the pattern of the question asked.
Okay, actually let me give you a good website. There is a website called like List. Some of you may have heard about it. What you can do is basically you can go there, and you can find people that are willing to take your interviews for free. There will be like half to 1 hour sessions, and I think you will get to practice some questions from there. And as for the questions, like again, before I said, in 1 hour, if you need to do two questions, it will be easy to medium questions. The questions will be like recursion and linked list and some stack questions too. And for the hard questions will mainly focus on tree, the hard level questions of tree. And on that, like you will again need to use, you definitely need to use recursion in a tree. So your recursions need to be very good. And like in depth, can you maybe like explain what else are you looking for? And that will be helpful. Apart from that, I think I already told a lot.
Yes, sir. Next question. What happens if you get stuck in a coding question during the interview? And do the interviewer helps you, or he just dismisses you?
Actually, the thing is, man, it definitely depends on like your interviews and your kismet and all stuff like that. Sometimes that's why they say like apply for all the companies. Maybe you are in an interview, but I see like most of them are helpful. But in one of my interviews, the interviewer was not very helpful, and like when I was stuck, he didn't help me. But for I guess in 14 of them, they really help. So let's say you are stuck in a questions, and it's not like if you have done some good preparation of DSA, you will not be just like, okay, stuck, I don't know what to do. But the thing is, when you are stuck, you will tell the interviewer, okay, like these are the processes that I'm thinking, and this is, I think, the problem with this one, and I'm not able to solve this thing if I'm going through that approach. So in that case, the interviewer can help you, like, okay, like, but if you do this, then you might be able to solve this problem. So these are the kind of help interviewer will give. He will not give you code like, okay, do this line and then enter that line. In interview, the thing like they tell you most is keep speaking, like you are not supposed to stop. So if I could interview give you a question, tell him, okay, like, okay, this is the question that is, and this is the approach that I'm thinking. For this approach, this will the time complexity and this will the space complexity, and like just keep talking to him. So like anytime you are going the wrong track, the interview will stop you and say, okay, like why is this, And if he asks you like why is this, then you can think, okay, like maybe there is something wrong. Then you can think and then tell him why you are doing this. Like it may be right too, but I'm saying like keep speaking so that interviewer will know what's going in your mind. If you are going into right direction, and he can point you into the right direction if you are going wrong at early as possible. So that will be really helpful. And that is the thing when you're stuck. And the thing is like, again I'm saying it again and again, read the previous experience. One of my questions was repeated from the previous experience. It was related to some tree. So when they asked me, like I solved it in maybe 45 minutes, and this was in the second interview, the hard one. So I had more time for the next questions. So then again I took my good amount of time in the second question. So prepare the previous questions, keep telling the interviewer what you are thinking, and it will be all right. It's not that much hard. You can always clear it.
Next question. Is there negative marking in any of the rounds for the clearing?
There is negative marking in the first round, the MCQ round. Apart from that, there is no negative marking in further rounds.
Okay. So last question. Basically, for the front end profile, what should be our main to-do things if we want to prepare for JTG?
I will say like make projects, at least 3 or 4 projects, and make sure like the projects are. I always like tell people don't clone the projects of YouTube. Don't make a Netflix clone or Google Sheets clone or projects like that. Like every time interview sees those, he's like, okay, like just remove this guy, or like I don't want to interview him, because the thing is he know you have cloned it from a YouTube or somewhere else. He doesn't know like if you just copied, if you actually did the project, you just copied the GitHub profile, the GitHub source code. So I will say like choose some project around you. Maybe think of a problem that you can actually solve, and make sure your project revolve around that. If you do like, let's say you make 3 projects, and one of the projects was related to backend, like not completely backend, but one of the project was on React. The other one was doing a lot of DOM manipulations, and in the third one you were handling a lot of data. So you used stuff like map, filter, reduce, and things like that. So you, if you make a lot of projects, then you already know what those projects will be like, what are they based on, and how some technology is working initially. And like you can read all about JavaScript functions, and then you might able to give an answer. But if you have actually coded on some things, then and you tell interviewer like, okay, I don't know this problem, but when I did this project, I also faced some kind of this, and this is the approach that I took. So that will be really helpful. Like in one of my questions, he asked me like, you are getting a lot of server calls on the server, how will you debug that? So for that you need to think, and if you have done stuff like that, then only you will be able to answer those questions. So for the front end, I will say just make 3 or good projects, and that will be really helpful.
I appreciate your words. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your experience. I would like to thank both our speakers for their time and their wisdom and their thoughts for sharing them with us. We are delighted to hear from you. With
Thanks.
this, I would like to end this session here. Are there any more queries from our listeners? They can ask in the chat box, and so you can also leave your LinkedIn IDs in the chat box so that if the students have any queries, they can ask on LinkedIn.
Sure. I'm so like anyone you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and like you are in your 4th year, but if you need some other help, need to apply to some other companies, you can always reach out to me.
Thank you, sir. With this, I would like to end the session. You can all leave the meeting. Thank you.